Hello, 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 and welcome to another episode of the Full Quota podcast. This is your South African cricket podcast where we talk all things South African cricket. We'll be talking Proteas women. We have the SAA squad that's being announced. If you want to go through the squads that were announced for the India series, that was last week's episode. In between last week's episode, we also had an interview with Carl Verena, who's going to be playing in the one days as well as the tests for this India series. He's also the successful captain of the Western Province who won the One Day Cup. And so his re-emergence into the national setup has been a key discussion, and that's what we had. So that's what we do. We talk cricket, South African cricket. That's what we do. There's lots of cricket on the go. Right now in South Africa, you're not watching any cricket because it's raining everywhere. It's miserable everywhere. I know SAA is playing right now in Poch today. That game hasn't started. They've taken an early lunch, but supposedly it's raining in Potchefstroom. I was in Poch on Saturday. It was 36 degrees. Maybe we should have played on Saturday. Maybe we got in some crowds. Sunday was just the same. Yes, there was rain. We would have had at least seen a little bit of cricket by then, but it's just weird because, within 48 hours, everything changes. So I'm not on my own. My name is Mpho and Tim. I've got Tim Delace here with me. Tim, how are you doing?
I'm doing fine, but just on the rain. It seems to be raining everywhere except for Cape Town. I'm sitting here in glorious sunshine. And I'm sure we'll get into it with the rain in Durban for the T20s. But otherwise, all good, dude. All good.
That is amazing, Tim. That's amazing. Yeah. So remember, here's the thing. We're on X and on Twitter. Please do follow us there. Add on to grow the fan base. Let's try build something amazing. If you're watching us on YouTube, please click the subscribe button on the One World Sports Radio platform. We're trying to be a full sports platform. We've got rugby, we've got cricket, we've got soccer. So please do support us and support the Full Quota. Send through your comments. There've been some great comments coming through this week. Really, really do appreciate it. Also, if you're an audio person, you're like, guys, I like to see your faces, but I prefer you in my ears. Just like how Tim's got those lovely headphones. I've got my little Apple ones that I'm using. We've also got that too. Apple Podcasts, as well as on Spotify. Just search Full Quota Podcast, just like that, and you'll find us. That's what it is. So today, we're going to be talking SA India T20 series preview because yesterday's game was rained out. So we were going to talk about what happened last night, but because we have to have a discussion about Durban. The only national team that actually gets success in Durban is Bafana Bafana. Even then, it's a little weird. But they also play in these torrential things because you can play soccer in any weather, right? Whereas cricket, you can't. Whenever the Springboks go to Durban, they lose. The Proteas aren't necessarily comfortable winning in Durban. Over the last couple of years, they've done quite well, but we get stuff rained out and all of that. So we need to have a discussion about Durban, Tim, because Paul is sitting there looking pretty. You could have sent India to Paul.
I know. Look, I don't want to be hating on Durban, but if you watch the beginning, they talked to Pommy, crossed over to Pommy on the ground. He said they spent a lot of money on the drainage system, and it's really improved. And as he said that, he patted his shoes on the ground, and he said, "Perhaps not."
I love Pommy. I love it.
That wasn't me. I didn't say that.
Coming up, so because that was the other thing about that Durban Super Giants. You know, some of the games got rained out that they were playing at home. I just don't know. Maybe we need to change the way we look at our cricketing calendar. Maybe play in winter, and actually not play in summer because it rains in summer.
I think we need improvement, and I actually don't think this is a South African thing. I think we need improvement in the equipment that's used. I really do.
Okay.
I see no reason why we shouldn't have got some game in yesterday.
Baseball teams play in domes, Tim.
Huh?
Baseball teams play in domes. Other rugby, no, soccer teams in Frankfurt, with Frankfurt Stadium, has a dome that retracts into the scoreboard at the top. We could do things like this, right? That
Take
Melbourne Stars Stadium in Australia has that, and if you hit the roof, it's a 6 or something weird like that. Maybe make it a 12.
yeah.
But
Take some of the SA20 money and do that. That's what I say. Do that.
yeah, but imagine the Wanderers with the roof over it. It wouldn't. It wouldn't be great. It wouldn't look nice. Yeah, it wouldn't. But anyway, let's get into the business of the week, right? So, at the start of the show, we want to talk about what's happened this week in South African cricket. A couple of things have happened this week, and we need to talk about. The SA Under 19 squad has been announced for the World Cup. We'll talk about that in a couple of weeks' time as they prepare closer to the time to the World Cup, which surprisingly I think might be held in South Africa. I don't know if the ICC said yes to that. I think they did because Sri Lanka got cancelled because of political interference. So that's going to be quite
Yes.
interesting, and a really really nice squad of some really nice youngsters. So John James, who plays for Western Province, and you saw a lot of those youngsters in the SA Under 19 side that made the final of the One Day Cup. So it feels like it's a good year.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Yeah.
It's going to be action packed. Certainly.
Yes,
Lots
yeah, and
lots of cricket.
we mustn't put pressure on the youngsters, but we kind of need to put pressure on the youngsters. And we in the Proteas women, they were in Kimberley. It rained in Kimberley for the second game, so they didn't get anything. But the final game gave us something that we were hoping for. I'd say we're hoping for, right? We spoke about the Proteas women last week, how the batting looked very light, the bowling looked less pacier than normal. And then Hilton Meringue was like, Mpho, Tim, just calm down. We've got someone. And they unleashed Ayanda Hlubi, who had probably the best start to international cricket outside of taking a wicket on the first ball. But she took 2 wickets in that first over of international career. She ended up with figures of 2 for 15. Bangladesh got bowled out for 94. South Africa still struggling with a little bit of spin there. Managed to get there with 2 wickets being lost, and they won by 8 wickets. There were a lot of questions about this team and what it is, but for me, Ayanda Hlubi is the find. She's not as pacey as Shubnam, but she can get there. She's still 19. She's still very young. That requires a lot of work in the gym, a lot of speed training, but there's a lot of really really good raw attributes there for her to cause problems for people at the top. She's a little bit. I think she's in the same pace range as Ayabonga Kaka, but I think Ayabonga Kaka is more of a bowler that actually hits the deck, whereas Hlubi skids it on, which is really nice to have a little bit of variation. But I was happy. I was excited. I was like, wow, okay, here's something. And obviously, the Proteas women drew the series 1-1, obviously having lost out on that second match. Now they're going to play the ODIs, so that's going to be quite interesting. There's a Bangladesh 11 versus an SA 11 happening today. But I'm still worried about the batting. Laura Volfart coming back in gives it a little bit more boost. Laura Goodall, who was a question mark as to why she didn't play last week, she came back in, so kind of boosted that middle order. Yeah, Tim, did you catch any of that?
I caught the batting. I must say I have seen highlights now, but in terms of live, I caught the batting, and I think you're right. I think it's good that we had that successful win. But the questions are still there. It's great that we unearthing this talent, and we're giving these girls a chance at the higher level. But the questions are still there, and we need to see how they go in the ODIs. That's going to be the real test for the. I would say South Africa should win those. A longer format game, I think they should win them fairly comfortably. But still, you would want to see the non-Laura's scoring runs. That's going to be important. If the other girls are scoring runs, then that we are on the right path.
Yeah, and it's going to come down to how well the non-law is, and but you've got Tasman who's there at the top, Laura Goodall who's been with the team for a couple of years now. You've got Annery Dirksen, Anneke Bosch. So there's a lot of them who need to step up. And I think with cricket, the longer you make it, the gap between the two teams will open up. And I think with Bangladesh, that's what's gonna come out, right? I think outside of them bamboozling that entire batting order with spin, you might find yourself scoring 250 plus, close to 300 every time, even without Laura. And it's an opportunity for the ladies who've been on form like Sune Lees, to step in, score some runs. Well, obviously the question is the 7 and the 8. Elise Marie Marks is sitting in there, so it's a question of giving her game time. I'd like to see Klubi come in again. I don't know how she'll do for in the longer format in the 50 over game, but she is a find, and I'd like for that pace, a little bit more pace. I think, yeah, you can't like Masabata Class has been a great stalwart for the country, and she's been a great servant, and she's awesome. But you need more. You need to kind of build those pace stocks as much as possible. So, because currently, right now, I don't think where the next ones are going to come through. There's always here and there, but as time goes by and as they develop, it's either they stay at their pace that they are at 19, or they regress. And I think, like if I look at Dumisi Kukune, she's regressed in pace, and she's become less threatening from when she was in 2019 when she was announced as Emerging Player of the Year. So there's a lot of that stuff that's happening, and there's a lot of work that needs to happen behind the scenes to like fix that bowling with in the absence of Shubnam Ishmael. So that's going to be quite interesting to see. Another thing to talk about is the SAA squads. I'm going to put them up on the screen. The SAA squads were announced for the games that are going to be happening this week. The first match will be a 4-day match with a team that's led by Bryce Parsons, who's a former SA Under-19 captain. This is a younger team. You see there's Ethan Bosch, Junaid Dawood, who is a leg spinner. Jean Duplessis, who comes out of the Garden Route Badgers there in Division 2. He scored a double century. The only man in South African 4-day cricket this year to score a double century. I might stand corrected, but yeah. And then you've got Ruben Herman, Connor Esterhazen, who's the wicketkeeper at the Lions. Evan Jones, who's also at the Lions. He's their what is it? The all-rounder. Kirtland Manikam, Udirila Mudimukwane, who's a spinner. Sampo Mudimukwane, who moved out of Hollywood Bets Dolphins to Northwest Dragons this year. Him and his brother would be quite interesting to see them in an SAA side. Sia Plaiki, who's got a lot of promise and a lot of talent. Cameron Shackleton and Yassine Vali as well in the side. But then we have a second 4-day side with a couple of the guys who will be done in the T20s. And this is more of a reflection of what's happening in the South African game. This is more of the guys who are waiting for their call up into that Proteas side. Matthew Bretzka, Bjorn Fortuin, Zubair Hamza, Tapu Mareki, Duan Olifis, Netemba Klashile, Josh Richards, who is an opener for the Lions, and I think he should put his hand up in the rumors that Dean Alger is retiring. He's also another guy to put in the mix. Ryan Rickleton, who has missed out on all of the selections, he's now in there, hoping to go on some revenge tour. Jason Smith, who we spoke about last week as well, he's another all-rounder. I hope he bowls more in this game. Johan van Dijk from the Northern Cape Heat is also an all-rounder, and then you've also got Kaya Zondo as well. He had quite well. Tim?
Johan van Dijk's a fast bowler.
Fast bowler, sorry.
That's good. Yeah.
Wait, wasn't he the Van Dijk that played for Northern Cape Heat when we started this franchise thing in the game that they beat the Lions in 2021 or something? Oh, that's correct. I thought he could bat. Correct. Okay, in T20 format, he can bat. Yeah, he can hit a long ball.
Yes, no, he can swing it. He can swing it. Yeah, but he's more of a premier fast bowler. Yeah.
So what do you make of this, Tim? Two teams.
So
like, I thought we didn't have money to have two teams and print kits and do all of that.
Yeah, well, look, I think they said at the presser that this was not on the schedule, this particular one. The one against the West Indies, that was on the schedule. That was the one that was planned. This one was not on the official schedule. This came quite late, which is why, in part, why you have such a a varied selection of squads. The other thing to point out is that while this is going on, the 4-day competition is also going to be happening. So I think the fact that they've assembled these squads with that happening and they
Mm-hmm.
haven't diluted the 4-day competition is a good thing. You might look at that, particularly the first game squad. You might look at that squad and go, "Hang on, I don't know a lot of these players." But I'm glad that they haven't devalued the 4-day competition. They've said to the 4-day
Mm.
stalwarts, go back to your franchises, your provinces, and your play your game. There's still a lot of talent there. There's a lot of talent there. Uh, People like Ever Jones and Ethan Bosch, to see them back
Yeah.
playing is huge. If you look a bit closely, certainly Ever Jones, he's been playing in the Colts, which is
Mm.
the in-between setup. So he's been coming
Yeah.
back to fitness. So they have been playing some form of cricket, which is great. Obviously, as you say, the second game will be the real test to see whether the next in line will step up. But it's a great opportunity for those
Yeah.
guys at the top in the first game. It's a great opportunity for Sean Duplessis to say, I deserve to play Division 1 cricket. I'm going to make
It's
100 against India A, and I deserve. It's a great audition for somebody like him to say,
mm.
I
and
am.
a late addition on the plane to New Zealand, right? If I look at all these guys, right? Um, Bryce Parsons obviously is in SA20. Ethan Bosch is, but and Junaid Dawood, but like Jean Duplessis, Ruben Herman, Connor Estesen, Evan Jones is in SA20. Kirtland Manakam, Sia Plaiki, the Mukwane brothers, and Yasin Valley. They're still not there, and to a certain extent even for like a Josh Richards, right? And it's a situation where we're giving out opportunities at the national team at the senior level, right? And what's to say you put out one of the most dominant performances against an India A side that's no joke, and you put yourself up there in a game where pretty much anybody expects you not to win, because effectively all these guys here are bench guys. I'm surprised that the Dolphins allowed Bryce Parsons to go, but that's another conversation about a guy like Bryce Parsons. Great all rounder, really good spinner, great batsman, very destructive batsman. And we haven't seen the best of him, largely because when you go to KZN, you find yourself in behind a lot of other great batters, right? And so I'm really excited to see how Bryce does it. I think he's a really, really good player. He's going into the Devon Conway mold, right? Of a guy who was really, really great in high school, made SA under 19, was really great coming out, couldn't find his feet because of positions in the team, and here's another chance for him to even put his hand up and say that he deserves to play more often for either the Dolphins or another franchise, right? And also like if you get backing from Shooks, because Shooks will be there, you'll learn a lot. And if we've seen with all these other guys who we interview, right, about the amount of stuff they learn, amount of role clarification they get by just being around Shooks, and you just never know. And as Shook said last year, 2 weeks ago, time changes and things can change. Plans can change. So it's quite exciting to see the guys there. Um, there were a couple of guys who I'm not. I look at them like maybe they should have been in here. Um, like a Sia Mahima perhaps as a spinner. I know player 12 and 13 will be confirmed. But like a guy like that, right? But
Well,
there's yeah.
yeah. So on that, I agree. I agree. On the face value, he should be in there without a doubt. But what I think it was a very difficult balancing act
Mm,
for Cricket South Africa to. I think they saw what happened to the Lions last week. They saw
mm,
they decimated the Lions setup, put them all in that game against the West Indies A, and you guys
mm.
really struggled at the 4-day competition.
Yes,
I
against the
hope,
Warriors.
I hope, I hope, even if it's not deliberate, even if it's subconscious, I hope they're going. We don't want to devalue the 4-day competition anymore by taking
Mm,
another quality player out of the 4-day competition and putting him in the setup.
No, but yeah,
They've got
obviously,
the
but for the second game, Tim, right? Not the first one. I get the first one, and
yeah
they did well. The second game, right? If you're taking Josh Richards and you're already devaluing the Lions by taking Rickleton and Josh, right? But Sia Mahima should be in that in on that list, right? As an up and coming promising black spinner. I know they've got Bjorn Foot, and I think maybe that's where they decided to draw the line, and then brought in Junaid Dawood as well, right? And that's another devaluing of the Lions, if you ever thought of, right? So
again
yeah, it's
it's I think Shukri is very pro impact versatility. So the Mutakani
mm,
brothers, Bryce Parsons, Neil Brunt in the 4-day competition.
yes,
He likes guys that can do both things. I love Shamima. I spoke about him last week. I love him. But what do you
he
get
just
from
needs
him?
to learn to
Give him
bat.
you
You get
get him
wickets.
with his bowling, but you don't get
Mm,
anything else. Then
yeah.
that's an issue. That's an issue
No, I
that
hear
needs to
you.
work on.
I get you. I get you. And yeah, so that's the stuff that we're looking at. Daniel Smith in there, Tim. Are you not going to fight for your boy?
Let's. He's doing fine.
You
I'm
just
not
don't
gonna
want
big him
him
up.
up
And
there. Okay, okay.
if I
Um,
big up somebody, then they tend to fail. So I'm just gonna
okay, cool.
let
Yeah,
him do his business.
and in other news, obviously, Lungiti's out of the T20 series. They brought in Bjorn Hendricks to replace him, which, guys, if you come on my podcast and you are not a Protea, you're going to become a Protea anytime soon. Just be there. Just come,
Yeah,
let sit with us in conversation. Let's talk about, your cricketing life. And then who knows? You could find yourself back, because he didn't think he'd be back in the green and gold. And he's there now. So that's actually quite cool. But that moves
yeah.
us on to our topic for the day. I know we went through a whole lot before we got here. I'll just put a timestamp in there for everybody else. SA versus India series, the T20 series, the one that was supposed to start yesterday, but Durban is Durban is Durban, and Durban is Durbaning as Durban can Durban, i.e., it's raining. So they've got the next T20 up here in Johannesburg. That will be no tomorrow in Gqeberha. Hopefully there won't be any rain there, and then obviously on Thursday they're up here in Johannesburg for that tournament, right? That game. Which is going to be quite interesting. And then on Sunday, you've got the Pink ODI to start the ODI series. So let's look at our team, Tim, and kind of figure out because the big issue we have here is that we've only got these T20. Now it's two T20s before we select a World T20 squad. And then we've obviously got three in the West Indies before the World Cup starts in April, right? Let me ask this question. Who has lost out on the fact that now this this 20 series has been shorted? Or is it a situation of Rob knows who's going there and he's just resting players just for the sake of it, because he kind of knows where guys are? Or like because I was sitting there going, now we've only got two. So does Othniel Bartman, what does he need to do? Take 5 wickets, like, to make it in? Or is it a situation of maybe depending on injuries you might be in? Do we have a settled squad for the World Cup in your eyes?
I think we do. I think we've got a 13. I think
Okay.
we've got a 13.
Mm-hmm.
But obviously, if Lungi, if he keeps breaking down, if he doesn't come back, then Bartman, in my opinion, has got a real chance
Okay.
at getting in. And I think Donovan. I think those two guys, if they have outstanding, if they play really well in these next 2 games, they could sneak in. I genuinely think that the door isn't closed, but so if I'm looking at 2 areas, it's impact batsman, guy that comes in at 5 or 6 and just goes big, and guy who could bowl at the death. Those are the 2 areas of concern for me that I'm looking at. So those 2 players of that squad, they've got a chance. It's a small window, it's a small chance, but if you're talking against India, this is as hard as it gets. This is as hard as it gets. Against a team like India, who cover all bases, they don't have. Okay, they're not playing Virat and company,
Yeah.
but they're still an extremely solid, strong squad. So there is space, but I think, as I said, I think it's pretty much sealed. Two thirds, 12, 13 is done, providing everybody's fit. Um, but those two guys, I don't think there's anybody else that's outside that's got a chance. I think this is it. Yeah.
So yeah, because as you're talking, there's a name that popped into my head. So is Sasanda Magala not gonna? Because you said you needed death bowling, and Sasanda is a death bowling person. What do we do?
The first thing I do is I look at his fitness record, and I go, if I'm gonna pick between right now, if fit, Sasanda is better than Bartman. He is. But
Okay.
I'm picking Bartman because I'm 99% sure he'll play on that day and he'll bowl those 4 overs and I'm not going to have a bowler down. I'm not going to have to go to Heinrich Klaassen for a couple of overs.
Okay.
That's why. So I'm picking Bartman precisely on his fitness and the fact that he is very, very good. He might not be quite as good as Sasanda, but I still think he's can really do a shift for the team. So
So
I do. And as fortunate as it is, I think the time has come to say, sorry, Sasanda, but it just hasn't worked out.
okay. Look, he's got money from SA20. He's not gonna complain.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's the other thing. Obviously, in the press conferences, Rob kept on speaking about relying on SA20 a lot in terms of a selection due to the fact that we don't have a lot of games, and so it's going to be quite interesting because the Devil Brevis is not on the side, and a lot of people will be wanting him there. Obviously, you spoke about Sisanda. There's obviously there's some guys being rested. Kagiso's being rested, and so you kind of look here and go, where how does this 11 look like, right? And obviously there's some new faces and the like, and so like obviously Anuk Nokia, we don't know when he's going to come back. He's really a great addition, but I think from a bowling perspective you kind of are sorted. It's just that death bowling that has plagued us at the World Cup in the 50 over format might come back and plague us here, and maybe Bartman and God, who knows, Björn Hendricks could be the death bowling specialist we've been looking for, or even an Andre Berger, right? Because he can bowl actually a really nice Yorker length ball if South Africa decides to go that strategy, because we seem to be allergic to bowling in the block hole. From a batting perspective, you mentioned Donovan Ferreira, right? He's quite an intriguing prospect and an all-round cricket. He can keep, he can bat, he seemingly can bowl too. And in this format, you kind of need that. And he's been the most informed player in the thing. I'm just worried that we don't do another Tristan Stubbs where he comes and he does that, and then all of a sudden, when his results don't go the other way, he's out in the cold. Because I don't like how we treated Tristan Stubbs in that, and that's another name that's not there, right? And he's been having a really, really good season with 50 over and 4-day cricket, even though a lot of people say no. Well, Shooks and Rob are like he's a longer format player. But I still think there's value in a guy like that coming in. He was the most expensive player in SA20. So there's something there, right? And we don't have the games, and that's my worry, right? And so that's my only worry around that. I think maybe after SA20, send another plane to New Zealand for guys to go play T20s against New Zealand, if you can organize that. But
Well,
because we've got money now, right?
no,
It's been reported we might be getting like $50 million in from this India series. Just send a plane of guys, just like how India did, right? And I think that's where I'm going with this, right? India have gone with youngsters in this one. They've let go of the guys they know and know it. Obviously, there's Jadeja and the guys, but it's guys who the questions India are answering are questions of in the 11 we may have some gaps who's going to put their hand up, right? Obviously, in that top six, they're trying to figure out ways. Obviously, Surya Kumar Yadav is the captain of this side, which is great. I think it gives him security, but that Hardik Pandya role, that all-rounder who can bowl and bat, they're still trying to figure out. Also, what type of spin bowling combinations are going to be sitting behind a Kuldeep. I really enjoyed Ravi Bishnoi when he played for Australia, so they are a little bit interesting. Though, so is the death bowling and the lower order versatile power hitter the only questions we're answering? Isn't there anything else that we're answering? Because I'm looking in that top six. I think it's largely settled. But my only question is, can we at will put down 200 with the batting lineup that we have? Obviously, Reza at the top, Aiden coming in there. Is like it's fine. I find myself in a 50 over question, in some sort of a 50 over situation where we were sitting here, I think against England early last year, when we were like, this team needs to learn how to score 300 at will at any time. And they managed to do that batting first. They can't do that batting second. Can this T20 squad that's been assembled now do that and be able to score 200 at will? I know at the Wanderers that's what's going to be required. Can they do that? And those are the things that I wanted to answer. Outside of the death bowling, I think that's important. But for me, I think the way India are answering is they're answering gaps. We're answering, I think, team style, as well as some of the gaps that you've mentioned.
Yeah, look, the question will be is whether we've learned anything from that World Cup. The lessons we learned from the 50 over World Cup will actually help in this format. It will actually tell us something about the way that what the players are actually able to do. If they've learned their lessons, I see no reason why this team cannot score 200 plus. I really think they can. My major concern is when we let things go, we let things slide. We tend to let things slide with the ball, which is strange because we often put pressure on them from the get-go. We often put pressure in the power play. We are supreme at that. And then, for some or other reason, whether it's we're a bowler short or we just don't quite, we seem to be less focused in this middle overs. Just a little less focused, and that's all it takes. In a format like this, if you are a little less focused for an over, not even a couple of overs, for an over, and it goes for 15, 16, the game's gone. The momentum is completely shifted. And when it's shifted like that in a short format, it can have devastating effects. So I have concerns on that. But my main is the death bowling and finding that, I guess for me, it's finding that David Miller 2.0. Because David Miller, I want him to be around for another 4 years. I think he can be. But if he's not, I want his replacement. And I want his replacement as soon as possible. As soon as he would... Yeah.
There's also the question around Quinton, and I think that conversation is actually not closed when it comes to this national side, the T20 side, right? And Rob's kind of brought us into the equation as he's going to kick the can down the road, right? But that's another question, obviously, at the top, right? It's Reza and obviously, I know they're trying Matthew Bretzka, but 2 games. Obviously, he played against Australia, he did well in one of the games. Is he the guy that we should be looking at? Or I know the cloud of Quinny's hanging over this entire World Cup, right? Because you might just be like, actually, SA20 was great. Let's go to the Caribbean, right? And so how do you prepare as a player like that? Like, so because like I'm looking at Matthew Bretzka and I'm like, is he the only opener we have? That can fit this role?
He definitely isn't. He definitely isn't. But he is the one who's in form. If you go on last season, he is the one who, when he has been picked, did do well. You can't say he didn't do well.
Yeah.
But he definitely is not the only option. And I think, I would imagine, even if it's subconscious, I would imagine he would know, listen, it's a flip of a coin of whether Quinton comes back. So I've got to make an impact. I've got to
Mm.
actually make a 80 or 50. If I don't, I've got to really make
Yeah, something that
Rob
changes the game. Either give us a
exactly.
platform with the bat,
Yeah,
even if it's a good 40 in a partnership with somebody or a few people, or it's something that changes the game, right? And to a certain extent, that's what he's looking for, right? Um, Tim, I'm gonna ask you about the top six because like I look at this and I'm like, okay, fine. So I know last we spoke T20 because I don't think we're fans of this format, me and you, but we still need to talk about it, right? Aiden's role, is it a three? Is it a four? So obviously we've got Reza at the top. You've got Matthew Brietzke batting with him. Is Aiden your three?
he's in three in this squad. Yeah, yeah. I think
Okay.
he'd have to be. Listen,
I,
he's guard the days of protecting talented individuals. Responsibility. Take it on the shoulders, and I'm sure
okay.
he will. Take it on the
Okay.
shoulders, and
So then,
yeah,
yeah. So then, obviously, that's the question. I think the other question that we need to answer: who's your four? Obviously, you got Stubbs there. You've got Ferreira. Do you push David Miller up to four, or does Heino Klassen bat at four? Miller bats at five, and then you bring in Stubbs and Donovan Ferreira at six. How do you go about this?
yeah. I think it's as tempting as it is to be sort of to go the Stubbs Ferreira at four. I don't think that's fair. I don't think it's fair on them because if they fail, then you know what's going to happen. Okay, they're not good enough. This is why they haven't been picked before, and so on and so forth. So I'd want them to stay down at six. Um, Obviously, it's going to be match dependent, situation dependent, but ideally, that you want Heinrich to bat there again. Take the responsibility, um, and then you want
Yeah.
Stubbs and Donovan to have free reign. You don't want
Mm-hmm.
them to build an innings. You still got to build an innings in a T20. You want them to have 20 balls. They get 20
Mm.
balls, they make 30 plus, done. Their job's done.
So who's your four in Quebec? Because we didn't see the team sheets yesterday. So who would be
Yeah,
batting at four for
Heinrich.
you? So Klassen
Heinrich
at
at four.
four, Miller at five.
Yeah, yeah.
Then who's your six
And,
between
and
Stubbs
I'm,
and
I'm,
Ferreira?
I'm, I'm going Donovan.
Okay.
Again, it's a flip of a coin. It doesn't, it's not massive whether it's Tristan for me. But at the moment, I really want to see Donovan at this level. I want to see him against quality bowling. I want to see what he can do. Um, I saw him in the 4-day competition the other day, and he
Mm.
just demolished the bowling. He just absolutely dominated Province for like an hour. Just completely, just just dominated them, and it was a thing of beauty. So I want to see him do it at this level.
Okay.
Um,
And then obviously then the question of the all rounder, I think we've now circled around Andile for this one. I'm just trying to look. Or was it Marco as your seven?
no, let's give Andila. Let's give Andila. We know what Marco can do. We know that he loves this format. We saw him
Mm-hmm.
in the SA20 last season. He was magnificent. Let's give Andila a proper run. I might even give him both games because we've only got 2 games. Um, I think he could be very useful.
Yeah.
Particularly
And
particularly in Quebec in that slightly slower wicket
slower
because
sticky pick wicket,
so
yeah.
yeah.
And then from a bowling perspective, your four bowlers, what do they look like?
So that would be. So obviously Bjorn's going to come in. Bjorn's going to come straight in for Lungi. Um,
Okay.
then it's going to be uh, Shabzi's going to come in.
Mm-hmm.
Maharaj, Gerald.
That's already four.
Yeah, that's 4. Yeah, it's 4.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So it's Shamsi
yeah,
Maharaj, Gerald, and Buren.
yeah.
So
With
two
with
spinners, Tim.
Markram with Markram and Petlaqua to
Yeah.
finish it up. Yeah,
Okay.
2 spinners. Go with the 2 spinners. be confident.
Yeah.
You're playing at home. I know it's India, but let's go with that.
Shamsi doesn't play well against India.
I know he doesn't. I know he doesn't. But I
Okay.
want to give him a game.
Look, you heard it here first. Tim's going two spinners. Seemingly I've got an influence on you, so I'm not going to complain with that bowling attack. I'm really not, and I'm also happy with that top six. And I think it's a very explosive top six. It's just that number seven. I just would like, even with Marco and Andile, um, seven requires you to come in as an explosive batter, right? And not necessarily get yourself in and I think that's what we're missing in South African cricket is a guy who can bowl just as good as those guys, but then can be explosive with the bat, striking at about 120, 130, going upwards. I know we wanted guys to be actually no, you have to be striking at 160, 70, right? 170. And that's the thing, because if you're chasing, South Africa's still batting with six batters. And that seventh guy is only there if the target's under 50. Right. Even then it's a 50-50 situation. Whereas if you're batting first, obviously you can say that we're batting with seven because you've got time. So for me, that's my still. It's the same worry we had in the ODIs. It's the same worry we have here, and I think we're not answering that question. I don't think I love what Marco brings. He's an 8. I love what Andile brings. They're an 8. They're not a 7. But the way in which we're trying to finagle this team, they have to take a step up because there's no out and out 7. And I think in world cricket, the only team that can give you that is India. Australia, England, everyone else is struggling around that. Yeah, because if I look at even New Zealand, I'm like, they're starting to get a few all rounders coming in at the bottom, Jimmy Neesham and those types of guys, which he's been there for a while, but it kind of helps them. Whereas with us, we're sitting there going, we developed all these guys, but they're not giving us what we need, and so it's really tough. And if Donovan could bowl a few for 4 overs in a T20, I wouldn't mind putting him at 7, but I want to give him a lot more cricket balls to bat at. So that's my only situation there. Okay. Tim, outside of the rain, obviously now so let's say this. South Africa lose those 2 games like to India. What do you want? Should we panic? What how should we take it if we lose both games?
Obviously, it does depend on how we lose. But no, look, T20 is one format where I actually think it doesn't matter, because you could literally turn it on its head the next day. I genuinely believe there's about, I would say, there's 7 teams that could win the World Cup next year. I really do. I think seven teams, if they get everything clicked, they could win the World Cup. It'll probably be whittled down to 3, but in theory 7 could. I'm not gonna worry, even though that it's an Indian team without a lot of their senior players. I'm not gonna worry. I'm not gonna be overly concerned. I'll be disappointed. Uh, the focus for this series should absolutely be the Test series. Even though it's only 2 tests, that should be the focus. The fact that the World Cup, the 50-over World Cup's another 4 years away. Again, the ODIs, we want to win, sure, we want to win, but we don't want to lose a Test series against India. That is non-negotiable. The
Yeah.
others, yeah, the others, it doesn't matter so much, particularly the 50 over. That's the least of our worries.
Yeah.
Even though we want to see improvement, we want areas of concern. Yeah, that's for me. It's a priority for me. It's a 2 tests. And I think Shukri, and I think both of them actually, even though Rob's with the white ball side, I think that is their thinking. Their thinking is
Yeah.
the priority is the tests.
Yeah, and I think that's where the money's gonna be, because obviously both teams want to set themselves up for the next World Test Championship final. India have been there. They've had a little sour taste in their mouth earlier this year, so they want to rectify that. We want to use these test series to get ourselves up there. India haven't beaten us at home, even though last time they came out here with their chests pumped out, thinking they would run roughshod over us, and our little band of non-batters who don't have an average above 50, who shouldn't be in the side, who look like me, and we've kicked AB de Villiers out and all these other stuff. We still beat them. You can blame Supersport, they can blame whatever they want, but we still beat them, and it's going to happen again this year. And they probably will do the same things, but they're a lot quieter this year. They're not saying much around the test, around conquering the final frontier. We remember that. We were there. We were there in person. We watched that drama unfold. And one of the best innings in the world from Dean Alga. Oh my word! And that fading, I don't even know what it was. They should have actually called it off. It was fading, overcast light at the Wanderers, and Dean and Rassie van der Dussen were like, you know what, we're not coming back tomorrow. and then we went on Newlands, and then Lungingiti tore them apart. And yeah, hopefully his injury is gonna be he'll be ready in time. It looks like he might be ready in time for that test series because he's going to be very important in the absence of Anuf Nokia. But we've got Gerald, you've got Marco. Every time India come here, we unleash a speedster. We unleashed Marco on them. We might unleash Gerald Katsir on them this side. Who knows? But yeah, we'll be talking about that and a lot more next week. But yeah, do check us out as we close out this podcast, and just keep your ears to our Twitter, keep the ears to our YouTube channel. That's how you'll find out we've got new stuff. We didn't tell you that we were gonna have an interview with Kyle. We just put it on. Tim did warn you, but that's where we are. If you don't know, you'll just be surprised, and you'll be happily surprised if you're that type of person. But if you're gonna be like, but Mpho and Tim, you guys didn't tell me that on Thursday I need to make time to listen to you, then follow us on the socials, and then you'll find out. Full Quota on X, Full Quota Pod on X, One World Sports Radio. Subscribe there. Also on the audio stuff on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. And you never know, we might just have another interview on Thursday. You just never know. But the only way you'll find out is if you follow us and the like. But outside of that, thank you very much, Tim. Hope you guys enjoyed this podcast. We'll be back next week, either lamenting. It's after the Pink ODI. So it's either we'll be having a great time talking about what happened on the Pink ODI, or we'll be lamenting what's happened. But I know Pink ODI is an Andile Petleguaro day, so enjoy that because he plays really well in Pink. And the Proteas do too. It's just a beautiful thing. So outside of that, Tim, have a great day and week. And to all our fans, enjoy the cricket this week. SAA and India A has started. Well, you will have known by now. And you'll see that it is in Boch, so that's going to be quite interesting as well. And enjoy the T20s, Tim.
Yeah, the 4-day competition also starts this week on Thursday. So keep an eye.
Got a lot to talk about next week. Got a lot to talk about, So we hope the cricketers who are playing this week will will do well enough for us to talk about them and their exploits in the next week. But outside of that, it's goodbye and lesale kakakiso.